everyone, Matt here from Docs Running, and today we're going to do a 100-mile review of the Adidas Supernova Rise. So this is Adidas's newest addition to its daily training lineup. A lot of the previous daily trainers, like the Solar Glide ST, a lot of stuff was kind of using some more traditional models. It was like of design. Yes, they did have rockers and some flare and things like that that made it a little more stable, but they were just so heavy. A lot of these shoes were 11 and a half ounces, and they were so clunky and unpleasant to run in. And that was one of the biggest challenges I had for reviewing them. And a lot of them we actually bought ourselves before Adidas would send them to us. And this one was sent to us. Thank you. They were so heavy and uncomfortable. It was really hard to make any positive recommendations about them. Because again, weight is a huge factor in efficiency. You're not going to race in a shoe like that, but for normal running, that can definitely wear you down. So finally, after a couple years, they finally come out with the Rise, and there's going to be a couple other Supernovas that are going to look very similar to this and have some similar designs. With one of the biggest things outside of being a complete redesign is full-length Dream Strike midsole, which is a PEBA-based foam that I will talk about in a second. But it's just nice to have something light and comfortable from Adidas that is actually runnable. So let's talk about specs first. Men's size 9 is coming in at 9.8 ounces. Women's size 8 is coming in at 8.3 ounces. There is a 35 millimeter heel, 25 millimeter forefoot. I've also seen reported as 24 1 millimeter. What are you going to do? Okay. It's a 10 millimeter drop shoe. That's exactly what it feels like, partially because of this posterior heel flare that we'll talk about. But again, 9.8 ounces is over an ounce, if not an ounce and a half lighter than the previous versions. And the second I put it on, I'm like, oh my gosh, finally something that's like runnable and light in today's in the Adidas lineup that's not an Adizero. Because you know, the Adizero line is like its own fast stuff, but it's not necessarily meant always for daily training stuff. So it's nice to finally have something that myself, the average runner, can actually enjoy without having to like feel like we're just clunking along. So I think this is going to make a lot of progress. Let's talk about how this thing is done over 100 miles. Because honestly, when I first put this on, I was like, upper's good. This heel kind of stinks, but it grew on me. So one of the things that I noticed first outside the midsole is that obviously there's a large posterior heel flare, okay? What that thing does is when you land, especially if you're a heel striker like me, it's gonna cause you to land a little bit early, okay? It's an early initial contact. Your muscles need to be able to fire before you land. If you land a little bit early, some muscles are gonna work a little bit more. For me, my quads definitely kick on, are a little bit more sore because it's just the way that things are being torqued. You tend to use a little bit more shock absorption. Your muscles have to kind of contract a little bit more because normally they'd have a little bit more time. So it is offset by a large posterior lateral bevel, which Adidas tends to do really well on. I do think this bevel is a little bit aggressive and do think it could be eased in or smoothed out a little bit. That might be solved just by hacking off the back of the shoe here. But what offsets that is it's got full-length Dream Strike for the midsole, which is a PEBA-based foam. And I heard someone say earlier that it feels like Zoom X, and I will say it feels different from something like the Invincible, definitely different from racing models. This is not a racing model, but it does feel like a PEBA base or a newer age foam. It doesn't feel like Boost. It's kind of heavy and sometimes slow to respond. It does feel kind of light and snappy underfoot, which is really nice. There's plenty of cushioning, which is apparent immediately, and it's just a comfortable foam. I really liked it. It's comfortable and light. And that's kind of the big thing, to be honest with you. Once you get there and you learn how to get the shoe to transition, it does feel very rockered and rolling, which is kind of nice once you learn where to land in this thing. Once you transition to the midfoot is fairly smooth, nothing really big to talk about. There are these things that are saying they're rods in the bottom. These are fairly soft and flexible, so I don't know if there's additional stuff inside here, but the heel and midfoot are somewhat stiff, at least somewhat. When you get to the forefoot, there's just a nice transition off the front that is so smooth, plus the Dream Strike, just a really nice forward transition. Little clunky in the heel, but nice forward transition. That, again, I did get used to this, probably, again, over 100 miles. I got used to it. I just wish this was just a little bit farther down. In terms of its purpose, it's really meant for daily training miles. I have done some strides and gentle fartleks in this shoe. The first time I did that actually was when I was with my daughter, because I have a really nice running stool from Guava, and I was doing a run and I wanted to see if she could tolerate some speed stuff because she was about 4.5 months at that time. Actually, it's like literally a couple weeks ago. And she did fine. And it was really nice just to pick these up for brief periods of time. It didn't feel, the heel did get in the way, so it started to feel a little bit clunky. But for picking up the pace like a light fartlek or light strides, this shoe does great. But it's really meant for long runs, which I've had a great time with, and easy mileage, just getting things done when you want just a little bit lighter relative daily training shoe from Adidas. And it's been really smooth. The other nice thing about the Dream Strike is it stayed completely consistent over the life of the shoe. So over 100 miles, it feels almost exactly the same as when I first started running in it. And that's really nice because I don't feel the foam bottoming out or dampening. It does seem to have a good resilient foam that's keeping it up. And that's the other thing. Again, Adidas is fairly durable. 100 miles, this is my left shoe. I've barely put any wear on this thing. I'm just starting to wear a little bit through the rubber, which for me is a really big deal, especially in a shoe that I'm leaning a little bit early on. It's durable, so you're definitely gonna get your money worth. I think 140 bucks is actually a great price. I can't believe I'm saying this, but 140 bucks is actually pretty standard for a daily training shoe, which blows my mind. And now we have the highly cushioned shoes at 170. Like, back in my day, I know I never thought I'd say that. When I was working in running stores, like, expensive was 100 bucks. But now, 140 is a pretty good deal for how long it's going to last and the kind of the performance you're going to get from it in terms of the longevity here. The last thing I want to talk about is the upper. So a lot of people were saying, oh, it's wide. To me, it fits very normal. It doesn't fit wide. It's when I first put it on, honestly, there's some additional thickness in the toe guard here. Did actually make it feel a little bit snug. As it broke in, yes, it started to feel a little bit more normal width. There's actually a good amount of volume here, so if you need to kind of move your toes up or down, or if you have a little bit more height to your foot, this shoe's actually going to do great. Midfoot didn't really have to lock down laces, fits fairly normal, nice kind of thicker tongue. Even though it's not gusseted, stays really nicely in place. And then a really, really thick amount of heel collar cushioning back here. There is a somewhat stiff counter back here, but the heel collar cushioning kind of helped cushion that out and made it feel fine. So upper's fairly standard, feels very normal fitting, fairly normal, not too wide, not super narrow, but it felt a little bit snug. It just takes some time to break in. So overall, I'm actually enjoying these outside of this back half, which just takes me some time to get used to, and then I'm fine with it. But that was to be the only thing I would suggest, is just kind of smoothing this out, making sure the bevel's not as steep, because with bevels, where the apex of the bevel is really important. It's not how much it is or how big, it's where it transitions to. Something this big, I'd probably transition this a little bit farther and maybe even have a little bit more of it here, but that's just me. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention stability, because Adidas is saying, oh, there's all these stable components to it. So there are some mild guidance elements here. First thing, midfoot's a little bit wider, which is great, right? That's always a nice thing, and it does provide a more stable, inherently stable base as you transition. There are mild sidewalls on the medial side, not as much on the lateral side. And then the last piece, again, is based on this heel bevel. Yeah, it's going to keep you a little bit more lateral, okay? If you like that, great. If you don't, and that you don't like getting pushed out, I wouldn't worry too much, because the way the shoe is designed, if you're a heel strike, you're going to land, it's going to pivot you inward anyway. So I would still say it's neutral. It's just got some nice stable elements. I wouldn't call it stable neutral yet. There's some other things that would be necessary. And there is a stability version of this coming out. I don't remember the name. I saw it online on Theory, which I didn't get to go to. I'm going to hope to go to next year after I finally finish my PhD. But yeah, so overall, I think it's a really good neutral daily training shoe. It's finally going to compete really well with things like the Nike Pegasus or the Saucony Ride 17, which is another shoe using kind of a newer foam. And I think, yeah, Adidas, thank you. I mentioned that I thought some of these shoes they're a little heavy, and they think they listen. I think they're going to have a lot more success bringing lighter shoes with newer foams in the market. And it just makes me excited to kind of see what Adidas is going to do with their foams, because they've been kind of consistent for several years, and I think it's time to upgrade. So I'm excited about that. Stick around. We'll see what happens in 2024, and we'll have more reviews for you.